The best time to start a podcast would have been yesterday or last year when you first started thinking about it. But don't worry, because the next best time to start a podcast is today. Today is the perfect time for you to start a podcast. Podcasts have really increased in popularity, with millions of people tuning into them every single day as their go-to source for entertainment, education, and inspiration. From comedy shows to true crime dramas, from interviews with experts to personal stories, there's a podcast for every interest and niche out there. And the best part is anyone can start one. Now, thanks to the accessibility of recording equipment and editing software, it's easier than ever to produce high quality podcasts from the comfort of your own home. No need to rent out a studio or hire a professional team. All you need is a microphone, a computer, and a good idea. When I first started my podcast 5 years ago, I had no clue what I was doing. I came from a finance background. I started my own business, and I needed a way to get myself out there. And podcasting has certainly done that for me. There are so many benefits when it comes to launching a podcast. And in this video, I'm breaking down 7 of those benefits. First of all, podcasts can help you build your personal brand and establish yourself as an expert in any given field. Take myself for an example. I'd come out of finance and I was insulated, meaning that I worked with clients within a company. Nobody online really knew who I was. So from that perspective, I had to start from ground zero. I had to build an online footprint, and I had to find a way to share my expertise with people so that they would be comfortable paying me for my expertise and working with me as a consultant. And that is really what podcasting did for me. Initially, I created episodes centered around my journey into entrepreneurship, and it quickly turned into me sharing the stories and expertise of other women who are building businesses. And as I was interviewing them, I've been able to insert my expertise into their stories. And eventually, I was able to create solo podcast episodes like this one and YouTube videos where I shared my expertise and I gave people snippets of knowledge that they could use to transform their lives and transform their businesses. And slowly, people came to recognize that I had something to offer. And this never would have happened for me without podcasting. It didn't take much for me to launch the podcast, but I have seen outsized rewards and returns from being a podcast. Now, thousands of you tune into this show every single week. You probably recognize my name when you come across it online. And I've received invitations to go on other people's podcasts. I've also received invitations to speak on stages. So you can see how I went from no one really knowing what I did after doing great work within the structure of a company to now having a community and an audience of people who trust me enough to take my courses, who trust me enough to bring me behind the curtain in their businesses so I can help them grow and solve problems within their companies. And podcasting is what really gave me the inroads into doing that in a very simple and manageable way. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Sewa, I'm not looking to start a business. Do I still need a personal brand? And do I still need to use a podcast to do that? My answer to that would be yes, because even if you are working within a corporation right now, inevitably, you're probably going to change jobs, and having a podcast out there as a part of your digital footprint, you will find that employers will Google you as they're doing their due diligence on you, as they're trying to decide between you and another candidate. And your podcast sharing your expertise just gives them an additional part of your portfolio to research and look into. And that could be the difference between them going with you and another candidate during the interview process. So there are a lot of benefits to having a podcast when it comes to establishing yourself as an expert within a field. Reason number 2 for building a podcast is it helps you deepen your relationship with your existing audience and customer base. I can't tell you how many times someone has come up to me and told me that they binge watched our podcast episodes on YouTube or listened to them on Apple Podcasts, and they feel like they know me and they feel comfortable taking the next step with me, whether it's signing up for a course I have, a service I have, wanting to do a consultation with me, there's less hesitation from their part to working with me because they have gotten to know me. They've gotten a good sense of my expertise. They've gotten a good sense of what I could potentially do for them if we were to work with each other. And I don't really have to persuade people. By the time they come to me, they are already making the purchase. They are already making the decision because they have been warmed up by the fact that we've slowly built a relationship just through them listening to my podcast, just through them seeing the kinds of questions I ask of the guests that I'm interviewed. They get a sense for the fact that there is some depth there. There is some expertise there that they would like to leverage. So think through what services and products that you have to offer and figure out how you can create podcast episodes that answer a lot of the questions people tend to have when they're thinking about who they're going to buy from, who they're going to work with, or what products and services they're going to purchase to solve their problems. Create podcast episodes around the questions that they tend to have or around the objections people tend to have when they're looking to work with you. When those questions are answered in advance, when those questions are answered before they ever pick up the phone to call you or write you an email, it's that much easier for them to say yes whenever you make the ask of them. No matter how much your products cost, podcasts are extremely effective in helping you deepen the relationship. Even if you have nothing to sell, if you're looking just to build a relationship for now, when it comes time for you to build a product or service, you already have an audience that's primed and ready to say yes to you when the time comes. So consider creating a podcast if one day in the future you may want to offer products and services to your audience. Now, for some of you, podcasts may simply be an outlet for your creativity or an outlet for your passion. People around you may be sick and tired of hearing about how you love to build car engines or how you love to bake cookies. They don't care anymore, and you're looking for an outlet to share your passion with the world. And podcasting may be the perfect arena for you to not only share your love for whatever it is that you do, but also to connect with a community of people out there who share your interests, because they also love to hear people talk about whatever it is they are passionate about. So start a podcast. If you are looking for a way to talk about your creative interests, to talk about your hobbies, and you are looking to build a community around it, the more you share what you talk about online, the more you're going to attract people who are also interested in whatever it is that you are interested in. So if for nothing else, you are looking to connect with people who share your passion, reason number 3 to start a podcast is to have a creative outlet for your passion. Reason number 4 you need a podcast is because it's going to help you feed the content beast. Now, if you're a business owner who uses content as a part of your marketing strategy, you know what I mean. We're always looking for content to put on different marketing platforms like Instagram or TikTok or even YouTube, because we need a way to reach our audience. We need a way to constantly be in front of them, sharing our message with them so they don't forget us. There's so much information out there. They're always inundated with so many images that it's important that you keep staying in front of your audience. And a great way to do that is to start with a piece of long form content, which is what this video podcast is. And if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, I will also talk about ways you can leverage the audio from podcasts as well. But this video podcast, for example, is often spliced into 30 to 60-second clips that I share across social media. I share it on IG Reels, on TikTok, on my IG stories, even on YouTube Shorts. I will share videos that started out as a podcast, but I will take out really an inspirational or an informational clip from my video podcast. And that is a great way to not only attract new eyes, but then bring them back to the original piece of content that you have. And of course, within the piece of content that you have, there's going to be a call to action of some sort. Now, other ways you can repurpose long form content that starts out as a video podcast is you can take the transcript from this podcast, for example, and turn it into a blog post, or take pertinent parts of your episode and turn it into either an IG image carousel or a Twitter thread or a post on LinkedIn. There are so many things that you could do with little pieces of your initial content that will help you feed the content beast. So you don't have to create original content for every single platform that you are on. Start with one extremely valuable piece of content. First, it's probably going to take you a little while to create it. However, once it's done, it's the gift that keeps on giving because you can present it in so many different ways. Trust me, based on the way algorithms operate these days, most of your audience are not going to see it the first time around, much less recognize it if they see it presented to them in a different form. If they listen to this podcast and you send out a part of this podcast as a newsletter post or a newsletter email, people may not recognize it, or it just may reinforce to them something that resonated with them when they heard it the very first time on your podcast. So be creative about how you use podcasts. And if you are someone who's always looking for content or feeling overwhelmed by all the content that you need to create for your business, or if you're a personal brand and you're trying to get out there, but you find that you don't really have the time to be creating all of this content, podcasts and starting with a video podcast especially will really help you feed that content beast. All right, so I'm just about halfway through my list of all the benefits and reasons that you should be starting a podcast today. If I've already convinced you and you're interested in starting a podcast of your own but aren't quite sure where to start, go ahead and download my free guide to starting a podcast from scratch. If you're watching the video version of the show, you can click the link in the description box to get yours, or in the show notes if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast. So just as I inserted my offer for a free podcasting guide into this episode, you can do the same with your products and services. If you have an audience that already trusts you as an expert in your field, if you're the go-to person for entertainment, whatever it is, if you're a comedian who has a podcast and you have a comedy show that's coming up, if you insert the announcement into your podcast, you already have the captive audience that comes back week after week to hear from you. So taking that leap to purchasing a ticket to your comedy show isn't that far of a leap. So instead of you having to pay for a billboard or buy ads, you've already built a community right here using a podcast, and people are more likely to take that next step with you. So if you build a podcast as someone who's newly starting a business or building a brand, asking people to buy your merch or asking people to come to your show, work with you as a consultant, whatever the case may be, they are more likely to do so if they are already used to checking in with you, understanding what you have to say, and accepting that you are the expert within the field. So consider this as a massive benefit, especially if you're looking to monetize your podcast. This can be an additional stream of income or revenue for you. Now, I know a lot of people will go directly to, oh, I can work with advertisers in order for them to put ads on my podcast, and that is how I will make money. Unfortunately, this isn't a reality for the majority of podcasts, especially when you're first starting out. If you don't have a large audience, whether it's 10,000 downloads at minimum per episode, or if your podcast is in a niche where the audience is already small, and if you happen to have a great part or a good percentage of a small niche, sure, advertisers may be willing to pay you to get ads on your podcast, even though you may not have that many listeners. However, for the majority of us who are starting podcasts, chances are advertising isn't the way you're going to monetize to begin with. If you do have a video podcast, I would say the option to monetize through ads is an option for you much sooner through YouTube's partner program, which is why I'm extremely biased towards video podcasts if you're looking to start a podcast. So through YouTube's partner program, you're able to split the ad revenue with them right off the bat. So when people watch your video, you get a cut of that. So start a video podcast if monetization is a priority for you right off the bat. But aside from monetization through ads, you can do what I mentioned earlier as far as inserting your products and services within your podcast and advertising those. As I mentioned earlier, podcasting can be a way for you to build a network. And when you have that network, it opens the door to collaboration. So if you know of other creators in your space or businesses in your space where you are able to collaborate and market each other's products and services, you can become an affiliate for another business owner. Meaning, if you are able to help them get a new customer, they will give you a cut of what that customer pays for them. That is called affiliate revenue. And you can not only do that with service providers, but you can also become an affiliate for any software you use or any products that you are already using for your business. So for example, I'm an affiliate for ClickUp. It's a software that I use within my business to keep myself organized. I also use it to keep myself organized when it comes to my content creation process. I've done a video on that process on my YouTube channel if you're interested in seeing that. But because it's a software I already use, I share it with my audience. And if you guys happen to use my affiliate link to sign up onto ClickUp, I do get a cut from them. So think about how you can be creative about generating revenue with your podcast. So if you have any tools that are common within your niche that you would like to share with your audience, find the affiliate link for that product or service. And as your audience grows, especially if you're sharing products and services that are relevant to them, if they take your recommendations, you will earn a cut from that. So be creative about using affiliate revenue. And there are so many other sources of revenue I can go into. If you're interested in me doing an episode specifically on podcast monetization strategies that are outside of ads, let me know in the comments and I'm happy to do that for you. But that's one thing to think of. The next benefit that I myself have been a huge beneficiary of when it comes to podcasting is building your network, especially if you are new in a space or you're a new business owner in a space, even if you have, say, expertise from the corporate world, but aren't connected to the big players in the space, having a podcast and inviting them onto your show as guests is a great opener to conversations, and it's a great opener to relationships, especially given that most business owners or experts are constantly looking for ways to reach new audiences. And your podcast may not be big now, but it's always possible that in the future your podcast could blow up, or that specific episode, through the powers of SEO on YouTube or on Google, could be found by a lot of people, even though your podcast in general is small. So that is a great opener, I would say, to start building relationships with people in your arena, in your field. I myself have interviewed over 200 business owners, and given that I do consult a lot with business owners, it's been great from a business perspective. It's been great for me personally as I'm looking to learn new things about running an online business. The business owners I've had on the show are of interest to me, just as you guys are interested in learning from them. I learn from them as well. So it's been a great way for me to build my network. So be strategic about how you network by inviting people onto your podcast. Now you might say, Sewa, I don't know people. Are they even going to say yes to me? I will say in the beginning, the people I had on my podcast were friends or friends of friends, but because of how well the episodes turned out, they shared it with their network. And that was a part of my portfolio that I had to show whenever I reached out to people who did not know me. They would take a look at my website, they would listen to and watch the episodes I already had on there and make their decision about whether or not I would portray them in a good light, whether or not I would represent their brand in a way that they would be proud of. And that, I believe, was one of the things that I had going for me and helped me kind of just to snowball the amount of guests that I could get on the show. And then also, you have to be genuinely in it to build relationships and not just in it to get a guest and move on. So a lot of times after our podcast recordings, I'll have conversations with my guests. We'll talk about how we can help each other or how we can potentially partner with each other. And that's a great starting point or a launch point for a relationship that's extremely and mutually beneficial for us as we're both growing businesses, as we're both in the same business owner community. So think about how you would approach this if you're looking to build a network in whatever niche you're in. A podcast can certainly help you do that. So, what are you waiting for? After hearing all the benefits and the reasons that you should start a podcast today, you should go out and do it, right? With a little bit of research, especially with the help of my free podcasting guide, you should be able to take your passion and your creativity and your dedication and start a successful podcast that's going to really make an impact on people that are waiting to hear whatever it is that you have to offer. So if you do happen to start a podcast, I would love to hear what it is. Share a link with us in the comments here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio version, you can either come onto YouTube or jump into the comments on Instagram. Let me know about the podcast that you are starting. With that, this is the first in a series of podcast-focused episodes I'm going to be creating. So if you're interested in hearing more about how you can start a podcast of your own, how you can monetize a podcast, and so many other tools that I have amassed in the podcasting space over the past 5 years, I'm happy to share. So subscribe to the show, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next episode that I have coming out. With that, we'll see you right back here next Thursday for another episode. Bye.